at 10:10. President Bill McGowan, John Beck, Wayne Sawchuk, Dan Coughlin, Lisa McGonigal. First order of business is to figure out our next meeting date. And 2 weeks from now is the 6th of October. Does that work for everybody as we look at our 2 weeks ahead?
Yes.
Right now it works for me.
Yes.
Okay. Dan? Okay, why don't we do that? So Wayne, Scott is calling in from vacation, so I thought we would talk to him first about the fan noises that we're getting and the complaints from the two residents.
Good.
So, Scott, what can you tell us, and any thoughts on possible remedies of this? Because we got our second complaint yesterday.
Yeah, you know, we'll start with the two exhaust fans. Really nothing that I can do other than shut them off. We can try to, you know, maybe we could talk to somebody. There's got to be some way of silencing them. I don't know if we build something around the exhaust on the outside. You know, that's not really my area of expertise, but there's got to be some way to silence them. I just don't know what that is. I think that's something we're going to have to look into, because we certainly need to run those exhaust fans, especially, you know, during the summer. You know, right now we're just not running them because it's just causing too much noise. So those are just not running. So somehow we look into muffling the noise, or we look into replacing them altogether. You know, I don't know. I don't know if a new one will be quieter. They haven't heard the noise for a while because we haven't been running them because they make noise. As I said before, we went through them all about a month and a half or so ago, tried to get them going. I mean, we were successful. We changed all the belts. We aligned everything, cleaned everything out. They're just loud. They're an industrial noise. It's an industrial fan. So the remedy right now is just shut them off and keep them off. As far as the blowers go, right now we have found that we just need so much air for whatever reason. I haven't figured that out yet, whether it's new membranes or just the situation of we weren't in a great situation before, but now we have nice new membranes, and we're trying to figure out what works best with them. But we did find, we did struggle the first couple months of nitrification, meeting our permit. We found that if we have all the blowers going 24 hours a day, we can be in compliance. We're fine. The last sample we got back was 5.3, which is one of our lowest total nitrogens I've seen in 7 years. So the amount of air we're using is working, but it's causing a lot of vibration with all 5 of those blowers on. And because all the neighbors are now super sensitive to the noise from the exhaust fans, now they're hearing every single noise that we have coming from that plant because they're trying to hear it. And I completely understand. I'm not trying to downplay them at all, but now they're super sensitive to any noise that comes over. So the remedy right now is just we're shutting off one supplemental air blower at night, turning it back on in the morning, 8, 9 o'clock when the town kind of wakes up a little bit. Outside of that, I don't really know what I can do. Short-term fix is in a month, those blowers should be able to be turned off and we'll go back to normal. And hopefully that gets rid of most of the noise, because nitrification season will be over at the end of October. And then in the winter time, we're going to have to try to come up with ways of reducing the noise level. I don't really know what that's going to entail, but we will certainly look into it.
How long have the blowers been off, Scott?
This is Gary. I just wonder on the exhaust fans, you could slow them down, then they'd be a lot quieter. And if you could add another one also operating at slow speed, and it would be quieter than running them at high speed.
So our exhaust fans do have 2 speeds right now. They do have a high and a low. What we found is in the low position, yes, it's quieter, but it's not effective. It doesn't do anything at the low speed. So in order to be effective, to get rid of the humidity in that room building, they need to be on high.
Well, you could put a third one in and run it at low.
Something we could certainly look into, I guess. I mean, the problem comes in the past 3 months. I mean, it's summertime. It's huge. You go in there. I mean, you guys have seen the inside of that building.
Yeah.
Now things are just rotting away. They're rusting. Everything is dripping wet. It's just so humid in there. We leave doors open during the day. We're trying to get anything we can to get rid of the humidity in there. It's just working.
Stupid question. Could we put, you know, an air conditioner or a dehumidifier in there that stays inside the building and nobody can hear it?
We could,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead, Dan.
What,
You get a lot of moisture, especially with the blowers, the aeration on high all the time. You're pumping in a lot of moisture into that building. The best way is to evacuate it if you can.
what about opening the big doors?
We do open them during the day. You know, it's just a problem, you know, at nighttime. Once we leave at 4 o'clock, you know, we got to lock everything up. We got to close everything down. And the current situation of those doors, I'm always hesitant opening and closing, but we have been opening those. As soon as I come in the morning, I open the doors just to try to get some air in there. Because right now is a perfect time. It's not humid out anymore. It's nice dry air. But again, it's nighttime. You know, daytime, nobody really bothers us. Nobody says anything because it's loud. There's cars, there's everything going on. But I understand it's the nighttime. It's quiet. You hear everything. So.
What about putting some 4-foot fans or something in the doorways or something to bring the outside in, especially when it's been so dry this year?
Yeah, but we could try that. We have an industrial fan down in the basement of the house in our storage area. Again, I think it's just going to be Band-Aids on a problem. We can certainly try it. It's just so humid in there. You got the warm water. You got all the machines going. It's just nowhere for that air to go, even with those vents on. Even with the vents on high, it's just okay in there. It's not perfect, but it is drier in there. You can actually see when you come in the morning, the windows on the doors are not all fogged up. You know, it does work. It's just loud. So we could try we could try almost anything. The problem comes in as we leave at 4 o'clock and we got to shut everything off. So now you go from 4 o'clock at night till I get in at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
With no air in there.
So just a couple sort of procedural things. I think, Lisa, if you can get addresses of the two. I know one of the guys is Joe Coggins. I can't remember the name of the other guy, but get their addresses. I think we have to send them both a letter from the board saying we're working on this, and, you know, a formalized letter, and then copy it and let Chris Senior know what's going on in case he gets any complaints that we're aware of this and we know about it.
I think Tina Watson too, right, Scott? Didn't Tina give you a call?
She did many weeks ago. Yes, she hasn't come by. I haven't heard from her since that one time. But again, we're keeping the exhaust fans off, so she's not. So you have an exhaust fan on her side of the building, and then you have an exhaust fan on Joe Coggins' side of the building. So she gets it from one side, he's getting it from the other. Again, as long as we shut them off, you know, that she's okay with, you know, I guess she's not hearing any of the blower noise because she hasn't said anything. It was just the exhaust fan that she had an issue with.
So that surfaces another point. If somebody contacts, you know, either, you know, Scott, you know, you, Scott, or Dan, we should know about it. And so that, you know, if they contact us, we don't know what the heck's going on type of thing. So this is the first I've heard that Tina's been chewing on us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I could certainly let you know.
So I guess we really don't have a quick resolution to this other than waiting for November the 1st, right? Or October the 1st, whatever time we shut them off.
Well, I think Gary was pretty much on the right page. You know, basically, if we can add more blowers at lower speeds, you can also baffle the louvers too. They're somewhat effective. So we could add baffles on the exhaust areas, and those would attach to the outside of the building. But you know, Scott's issue is he's running the aeration at full speed all the time. That's a lot more moisture than what we've seen in the past even. And he needs to evacuate it or else we're going to get advanced deterioration. So I really think maybe adding 2 more blowers and baffling all the exhaust blowers would probably be a next step.
Would you consider some on the roof, sort of the
That's-
circular ones that you have in restaurants and things like that? You know, something that's 4 or 6 feet in diameter. Is that a quieter type of exhaust?
The only problem is a lot of noise can escape through the rooftops, and you know just the interior equipment and components. So I'd be a little leery of just doing the rooftops. At least the ones on the side you can baffle.
Okay.
I don't know, Gary.
Gary, I have a question. Is there plenty of openings when you close the big doors for makeup air to get in there?
Yes, there are 4 vents per se. 2
Gravity louvers.
side. Yes, the louvers that are, so there's 4 sets of those, 2 on each wall for the air exchange.
Okay, so even when you close the big doors, you're getting air in there.
Correct.
And when you open the big doors, you get more air.
That's correct.
And the fans don't have to work as hard. Put out more air. Okay.
Maybe put more wall vents in then.
Yeah.
Perhaps with louvers, either for
Yeah.
temperature or for rain or whatever.
But again, the bigger issue is not necessarily getting the air in there, is the noise that they're making evacuating the air.
But is
think if they
are
didn't
they
have to work as
working
hard.
too hard to push? Right.
Be quieter if they didn't have to work as hard.
That's
And what, I mean, if we were to add another fan, like duplicating what we have now, do we have an idea of what that might cost and you know, the labor involved in putting it up on wherever we'd need to install it?
Wouldn't we still be dealing with the makeup air of having enough air go through so that it isn't also loud?
Yeah, you'd have to add intake air as well with each fan.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I know.
I mean, we can look at it, but basically, if you only operate at low speed, you probably still have to add some more intake air.
Scott, can I ask a question? Have you tried, when the heat is on, is there less dew or moisture when the heat's on?
That's tough to tell because we just got the heat last year. I didn't see much of a change when we had the heat, as far as humidity in that building. No. But again, we didn't have the heat for very long. I think it went in right at the end of winter last year.
Right.
I mean-
I'm just thinking, if you raise temperature above the dew point, you get less condensation in places. So sometimes it's if you bring in more cold air, you could be actually creating condensation. But if you raise that, I know when I was at the state, there was fog in the basement of the Carroll treatment plant. They took processed water from the pipes, ran it through a coil and a fan, and it brought the temperature up to the temperature of the water, the processed water, and it stopped the fog and condensation. Nothing we're going to do in the short term, but probably want to maybe something we can look at. That's a little tough.
Yeah, sort of tagging on to that, I think we need to have some sort of short-term solution so that the neighbors don't, you know, get their torches and pitchforks out against us, because, you know, we don't want to be a pain in the rear end of them. And I suspect, you think you're going to turn them off, what, the end of October, Scott, or?
The end of October, yeah. Nitrification, our last nitrification is October 31st. So, you know, we should be okay to shut them off by third week of October.
It's still another 4 weeks, though. So.
It's still another 4 weeks away, correct?
Yeah.
You know, we could certainly try shutting both supplemental airs off at night. I'm just concerned we finally got in the groove of nitrification, and it seems that they're requiring that much air. Yeah, we could try it, but I hate to blow the permit again.
Okay. Well, I think that's something we got to think about. I mean, I don't think doing nothing for 4 weeks is probably not the right thing to do. Not probably, it's not the right thing to do. So,
I mean, I can commit to trying next week. I mean, we have our own in-house monitoring, so I can know what the nitrification is, you know, almost instantaneous. So we could try, you know, this week, maybe next week, just shutting both supplemental air off at night, and that'll certainly quiet things down. But again, they may have to go back on at some point within the next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But we could try to shut both off to at least say, hey, we're going to try this to quiet it down and see how that goes. And I can update everybody weekly as to where we stand permit-wise.
Well, I would suggest that staying within our permit is the prime decision maker, not noise. I mean, we need to deal with noise, but don't screw up our permit compliance in the process,
Correct. I agree.
ever.
Scott, so you're kind of indicating that the supplemental blowers are noisier than the regular blowers as well?
Yeah, so what's happening is in the past, we've only ever had to run one supplemental air blower at a time. Keep in mind that, so we have 3 main blowers and 2 supplementals. We've always had to run 2 main blowers, 1 supplemental. With these new membranes, we're required right now to have all 3 main blowers on, and we're also running both supplementals. So all that piping in there, all that air going through those pipes is just rattling everything. And that's what they're hearing right now.
and is that a design of between the old membranes and the new membranes, basically?
Yeah, a little bit. The new membranes require more air for cleaning and agitation.
Because
Just the configuration of the membranes in the cassettes.
And again, we haven't had a lot
No,
of
no, wait.
time. I'm sorry.
why are the new membranes so different with regard to the need for more air than the old ones were?
The mechanics of it, I'm not really sure why, but they did indicate that
Who
keep
did?
them clean, we needed to maintain the air a little bit higher.
The designer did?
Yes,
So we knew that.
we knew there would be additional air. The question was how much more, and that's a function of our wastewater.
Okay.
And also, we haven't had a lot of time. I haven't had a lot of time to try to play, if you will, with different ways of using the air, because we got the new membranes and we went right into nitrification season. So I haven't had a lot of time to try this, try that. Oh, this works, this doesn't work. So there is the possibility that we can lower the amount of air that we're putting in. But at the time we got the new membranes, we went right into nitrification, and I didn't have a choice. We needed to put as much air possibly in there because we were consistently 3 straight months where we were out of compliance.
Yeah.
So once we get through October, we'll have the winter to at least try to come up with another way or different ways, or just play around with the air and the blowers and the cyclical valves, we'll be able to experiment a little
Yeah,
bit, not have to worry about nitrification.
the preference really is to run the supplementals a little bit more because they have a fine bubble diffuser on them, versus the coarse bubble on the main blowers. So from a biological efficiency perspective, you're probably looking to cut back on the main blower and still run the supplementals for best air handling.
Correct.
So, I mean, if we don't do that during the winter, you're going to start back up again. When is the nitrification permit, sort of May 1?
May 1, yes.
Yeah. So we're going to be back, we're going to have another issue at that point too. Potentially.
It's entirely possible. Yep. Again, though, we were behind the 8 ball with going into nitrification. We usually do a few different things getting ready for it that we weren't able to do this year because we were right in the middle of the upgrade. So we had a lot of factors this year with the upgrade, with the upset of the plant because of the upgrade, things just acting differently. I'm hoping this year is going to be an aberration of not what is normally going to be happening. I think we just ran into a lot of different factors that were contributing, and we were just scrambling to make sure we met permit. We were able to produce water effectively. I'm hoping it was just a snowball effect, and next year we're going to pick right back up again, and things are going to be better. I know we can't hold our hats on that, but that's the hope, is that through the winter we're going to kind of figure out how these membranes work best. We just haven't had enough time to experiment with different parameters.
Right, but the question still remains is how do we address this to the neighbors that are complaining?
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm at a loss right now as to what we're going to do.
Well, we tell them what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Right, but it still keeps it. It's not doing any. We're not going to be doing anything to the noise levels in the next 4 weeks.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we explain that to them and explain to them why.
So you're volunteering to write that letter, John? Is that what I'm hearing?
If you'd like, I will.
We'll discuss.
All right.
What we can do over the winter though is we can look at baffling those exhaust areas or intake areas to try to cut down on the noise.
And could we build anything around them? I mean, or is that naive?
You might have to, because the baffle movers, only come in certain sizes. I'd really have to look hard to see if I can find something to cover those large areas that we have. So it may have to be constructed.
Okay.
When are we scheduled to do our first deep clean of the new membranes? External.
Soon. So they went in, first set went in April. So 6 months from April is right around now. The first thing we want to do is going to happen next week is we're gonna take one out, couple cassettes, and just doing a visual inspection, see what they look like, see what's going on with them, and kind of make a determination from there. But generally every 6 months they're getting cleaned.
So you'll keep us informed as to what
Absolutely.
you see on your first peek, and
I will forward pictures and comments. Absolutely.
thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else with Scott, and we can let him go off and practice skiing?
Enjoy your vacation.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Yeah. Okay. Next on the agenda is the regional sewer discussion. No, I think everybody watched the session last night with the select board, and open it up to comments. If anyone wants to say something while we're all gathered.
While I'm thinking about it, And it's going to depend on how much external help we require in satisfying the commitment that we made last night to do a deep dive, whatever that will entail, and how we're going to pay for it. The town had a authorized expenditure of money that I don't think has been tapped yet, if I heard correctly.
No. Yeah,
And
well,
I
yes,
think-
you're right, but yeah, no, they haven't tapped it as far as I know.
I think that should be the source of revenue for us to pay any of the extra costs associated with this deep dive that's being done for the town as a whole. And it would be unreasonable to expect our users to pay that bill.
Agreed.
Any thoughts?
No, I agree. Absolutely.
So who needs to talk to whom to get that happening?
I will volunteer to make sure that we are appropriately funded on this.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. What's the deep dive into?
Well, basically last night, what did I do with it? For a variety of reasons, we talked about making recommendations to the sewer board, excuse me, to the select board of issues that we know of and may research in the next weeks that relate to sewer only in the town of Cohasset. Look at pros and cons of doing any kind of a regionalization, either with Hull or with Situate, what the cost would be, which we already have that data based on what Woodard and Curran had put together for us. Potential alternatives, which might be a satellite plant somewhere up near Beechwood, or possibly another one, and I want to get to that in a second. What the timing of all this would be, all with the proviso that we're going to, whatever we do is going to be in the best interests of Cohasset and would protect sort of contract integrity over the next, forever. And then do so with the absolute minimum disruption to the town.
I mean, it would seem to me if you do that kind of a deep dive, the level of detail that Woodward and Curran did, well, you're talking well into 7 figures, aren't you? No, six figures.
I'm sorry, Gary, what are you referring to when you talk about what Woodard and Curran?
The cost to do that kind of a study, a deep dive into the options that Bill mentioned. That's going to run well into 6 figures, I would think.
Okay, so we need to talk about the specificity of what a deep dive is. We have already examined all the details associated with the work Woodard and Curran has done thus far, and we were very clear, I think, in explaining our position in that background paper. And you took a look independently of anything we did at the Woodard and Curran information, much of which is, at this stage of the game, irrelevant to the Sewer Commission. We've already looked at it. So what are we talking about doing from this point forward that's different from what we've already done? We could certainly expand on what we've already done, but that's not going to cost a lot of money. Some, but not a lot.
No. My thought on this, since I was asked the question, was that this was not going to be an intensive engineering study by any means. It was going to be predominantly the collection and sort of reevaluation of data that we have in our hands now, and looking at other potential areas where we could put a mini plant, things of that nature that I know we've already have previous studies, but they haven't been amalgamated into a single report nor presented to anybody as a single report. I was not in any way, shape, or form looking at a year-long heavy engineering, go a mile deep into the town by any means. Something that would give them an idea of what we would need to do, what an estimated cost would be, what an estimated timeline would be.
Well, my notes from last night show that Kerry cited two issues: short-term needs, and long-term needs. Any satellite plant is certainly in the long-term need issue. We do not have a short-term need for a satellite plant.
No, well, no. I mean, but that can be, yeah, you're right. But that can be identified. We can put that into this paper to say, well, what do we do in the first year or 2 or 3, and what do we do in 5 or 10, that kind of thing.
We can also expand with a reasonable estimate, for example, on what it will cost Cohasset to sewer South Main Street. Dan has done enough preliminary work,
Right,
that he can attach a range of numbers at this stage of the game, since all the devil's always in the detail, and we don't have that kind of detailed engineering evaluation yet, nor should we have spent any money on that.
Mm-hmm.
But we have enough information, I think, Dan, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that we can attach a reasonable range of expectation of what it will cost to do that. We haven't shared that with the public yet that I'm aware of.
We had already prepared a kind of a budgetary estimate of about 5.3 million for the expansion for all that area. But that could be refined, obviously, with the town topo, which we didn't have available to us, and then you'd be able to really refine that design and get a better number. So that was our stopping point, basically, because we didn't have the town topo available.
right.
But
So,
we can give a range of numbers. The other things that, though, I think you want to just take a look at is obviously the upgrades at the plant. What can you do at the plant if you had the permit change, and your other options that you have available to you.
Yes.
A new outfall, satellite plants, some partial regional, and that regional can go with not only Hull but also Situate. So I think what I heard when I was listening last night was you're really kind of looking for an overall upper level, not deep dive, but upper level review of your needs and your short and long-term actions that you need to take.
Would somebody remind me why the subject of a satellite plant got into play in this regard?
I think in one of the cases, I know Wayne had mentioned it to me, and which is a good segue in me asking Dan this question. And you're going to have to take the Wayback Machine on this one. I'm going maybe 5 years, 6 years. It was during when Brian Baldwin was around. We got a study from you, and I'll answer your question, John, in a minute. But I wanted to go because I don't want to forget this. We got a study from you of putting I want to say it was a mini treatment plant. It might have been a pumping station down at the end of Forest, where Jerusalem Road, right at the head of Straits Pond, and where Atlantic Ave and Hull are. And I don't know if that's Wadley Park or whatever you call that piece of ground where everyone parks to go to Black Rock Beach.
Yeah.
That was the study that I was referring to of that area. And I don't know whether that was a pumping station or a mini treatment station or what.
Yeah, I did send that to Lisa. That was the evaluation for the diversion. And what we were doing basically is we analyzed the diversion of flow. In other words, the North Cohasset being diverted before we did it. We also did some trials at that point in time. And the end result was we were seeing marginal pressures at the end of the system, closer to Hull Street. And basically that was before we did the trials, and based upon the results of the trials, we were able to divert. But that was a pumping station that was a secondary option. In other words, if the system itself couldn't divert the flow in its entirety over to Central, we could install a pumping station at that little island.
So wasn't there a rendering of a pumping station there?
Yep. And that's in the report. It basically looked like a little lighthouse almost.
Yeah, exactly. So let me ask you this: could it be a mini processing station if we need it.
It's really too small.
Okay,
All that area is available is basically just for a pumping station.
okay.
But we did.
I was
you know,
wrong.
Back in 2007, we were in the midst of doing the satellite review. And at that same time, DEP was changing their regulations for wastewater disposal to the ground. And also there were a lot of new smaller techs that were being made available. So we kind of put it on hold. We've had a couple of years now that, you know, a lot of these techs have been out there, and DEP has kind of finalized their approach to groundwater discharge permitting, especially close to wells or water supplies. So at this point in time, we could take that old information, because we did do individual lots and site investigations for those satellite treatment plants, take a look at those lots again and summarize that data. So, I mean, we could add that in as a piece of the pie. It shouldn't take too much, you know, to retake a look at some of those lots to see if they're still available.
And my vision of the satellite plants, John, was one that if we had a problem around our reservoir, for instance, it would be possible for us to put a small plant there that would basically handle the 50 homes or so that might be in that particular area, much like what Avalon did and what Toll Brothers did, meaning that to me was a satellite plant that would be run by the town rather than by the residents, but in fact would affect that group of that group. So that concept was for if we had a real problem in one area and we didn't necessarily want to, because of cost, try to even get to it to be able to come to the central plant, it would be smart to have something just for that. So I thought that, you know, Dan had gone to different areas of town to sort of where could you put a plant, but not necessarily with the intent that it's going to take, 50% of the flow to the town or something. Nothing of any significant size, but really, and it might be 2 or 3 satellite plants, but small in character, 25, 30,000 gallons, not 200,000 gallons.
Yeah, there is a sweet spot if you can keep it below 50,000 gallons. It does give you a cheaper plant, to get permitted. But I mean, generally the range for the smaller plants tends to be below 100,000. But if you get, a small plant that takes maybe, 45,000 gallons per day, you're probably only talking about $2.5 to $3 million for the plant in the disposal area. Disposal area is a big question, obviously, but with drip irrigation systems, more areas are now available for that. So that is a sweet spot.
How many houses would a 40,000 gallon plant take care of? Quite a few, right?
Yeah, 40,000. Just
100.
100.
About 120 or so, yeah.
I like big.
So that's just, that would cover a pretty large area.
Yeah, it would.
Yes. I understand, Wayne. Thank you very much. The problem with the discussion last night is it was kind of looked at least at what I heard, as, well, we're going to have to do this, and we need to know how much it's going to cost because it's going to take somehow play a role in our lack of ability to process with our central treatment plant. And then it gets confused with nitrogen changes and so forth. So it is a point of confusion, I think, in a lot of people's minds why we were talking about it. But Wayne's explanation is very straightforward and very clear. There has not been a demonstration, to my knowledge, that septic leakage is an issue in that area today. Am I mistaken on that?
I think this certainly could be a situation where there may be some failures in the systems, but I don't think that the effect on the whole reservoir, which is so large, by a couple of leaking systems would make a difference. I don't know if it would, that's the issue.
We've never
the
heard.
likelihood would be that,
We haven't heard anything from the water department, certainly.
No.
No, and John, to connect to your point, I think in some conversation, certainly during some of the conversations that went on last night, and a couple of select person conversations I had prior to the meeting that called me right before it, there was in their minds an urgency for sewer to be part of an overall master planning situation,
Yes.
which I don't discount, but I don't think that urgency necessarily applies to us in the same depth as we think it does. And there were questions to me about sewering 3A, and I said, well, I'm going to give you my personal opinion. No.
Yes.
So and that did not come up really last night. But so I think that there were some constituencies on the call last night that have a different schedule, if that's the right diplomatic way to put it, as to how sewer should be handled in the town. And that's sort of why I wanted to volunteer that we would put together our own timetable, cost, all those things, so that what gets delivered to the public is our view, not somebody else's definition of what our view is.
I appreciate that.
I actually had one question. I'm not sure if you guys know, or maybe Brian. It seemed like last night there was discussion regarding the development around the train station, and that the town was getting some additional money to do expansion of utilities and the like.
Mr. Sawchuk knows that, I think. Are you talking about Greenbush, or are you talking about Cohasset?
In Cohasset.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know.
And they were referring to it as area, I think it was 1B from the Wood and Curran report. And it sounded like they were getting a state grant to do expansion of utilities. Was sewer supposed to be extended to that area as part of that grant application?
I think Brian could respond to that. He's the one who put together the grant request.
Yeah, he's muted.
Yep. One other thing, I guess, while waiting for Brian to come back is, I think there's a little lack of knowledge on the whole premise of the lower permit that's been hanging over our heads for years. I mean, EPA is actually the authority that sets the limits at this point in time. DEP only implements the permits. So EPA has been looking at that lower permit level for one reason primarily, and that's because of all the nutrients that are coming into the cove and the harbor, not from wastewater, but from non-point pollution. In other words, urban drainage, animal feces, pet feces, fertilizers, all this non-point pollution that gets washed into the drains and into the harbors. And basically, that's the whole reason why EPA has been trying, or has threatened to set the limit lower, from the perspective of that's the only mechanism they have to apply leverage to the town. And originally the premise was, we'll apply this limit, but it won't implement if you do these other measures. And the other measures were really town-wide non-point pollution abatement. And I think that's the whole reason why they're still pushing for that lower limit, is they want the town to do these types of best management practices, DMPs, to try to abate the urban pollution that gets washed in there with every storm, every rainfall. So it's really, the lower permit limit that's being exercised on the plant isn't because the plant is doing a bad job. The amount of nitrogen on a pound base going into that embayment is negligible compared to the other sources of nutrients. So I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do in response to that. One is you could litigate, obviously, because there's no real basis for lowering the plant limit, although EPA has taken that position in several locations. But I mean, or you could basically, start to work towards cleaning up the watershed, which is what EPA really wants you to do. So I mean, I think that whole scenario, or the reason why that we have been threatened with a lower limit has missed a lot of people's viewpoint. And it is a town-wide issue. It's not just a sewer issue if they lower the permit. It's a town-wide issue, again, trying to get the town to clean up their watersheds.
Very well put. You know, and the fact is, if we sewer South Main Street, we're still going to be putting nitrogen into the harbor at our current discharge point.
Yeah.
All the nitrogen contained in that sewage is going to go into the harbor instead of being dribbled in, maybe through various leakage paths. So you're not really addressing the nitrogen issue when you sewer South Main Street.
You may be in some part. Obviously, you know, nitrogen can travel once it hits the groundwater. So if you have marginal septic systems.
Right. I know. It's complex, but the fact is, sewering South Main Street has its own environmental imperative, I believe. And I know Bill believes very strongly that's the case, and does Wayne. It's important that we be on a path to do that. But I appreciate what you just said about the driving force with respect to EPA and the fact that they want us, and they want all towns, to start paying more attention to how much nitrogen flows into bodies of water and affect the environment they're in.
Right.
Because we haven't done anything. What are we doing today, for example, in Cohasset to maintain the rain gardens that we spent quite a bit of money on a number of years ago? I bet you we haven't done anything to maintain those.
Yeah, last time I looked at them, some of them were in pretty bad shape.
Yeah, so sorry, I find a charger.
Oh, good.
The rain gardens are on a biannual maintenance with a contractor to do weeding and you know, refurbish the, you know, the mulch subgrade out there. So they are being maintained, but you have a few months of growth. You know, it's like if you didn't weed your garden all summer, they do get some weeds in them, but it's done in the spring and the fall.
Dan, what was the other question you had of Brian about the grant?
Yeah, it was basically at the train station, there was a grant, I believe you obtained for enhancements or utilities. Can you go into that a little bit more, Brian? And the big question is, was sewer supposed to be extended to the train station as part of that grant money?
I'm not sure what grant you're referring to. So I wasn't involved in any grant for around the T station or anything like that. You guys aren't talking about the most recent MassWorks grant for 3A, is it?
Yes.
Yes.
You are. Okay, so that was the limits of work on that were basically Sawyer Street, lighted signalized intersection at Sawyer and 3A, crosswalks, sidewalks, water, sewer, all the way down to almost to Tupelo pump station, not quite to Pond Street. So there is no work outside of those limits.
Okay.
The train station would be much, you know, further north.
Okay. Yeah, you're referring to
The
areas.
issue's gonna be, what do you do for that? In other words, you have $3 million to spend, and I don't think it's defined exactly how we're gonna spend it other than general improvements. It could be a sewer, but it doesn't have to have sewer. You know, it could just be water and electrical infrastructure.
Well, Gary, I'll speak for the board on this. It's our belief, from what we have been told by the town, that the driving factor of this is to sewer the new 40B project at the Stop and Shop Plaza.
There's 5 units of 40B housing there. That doesn't really justify a sewer, but
I think they were actually getting credit for 20 or something like that.
You get credit for 25, which is the crazy thing.
So yeah, I mean, sewer is an integral part of that that grant proposal. So it'd be water replacement, the asbestos main goes up 3A, a new sewer, and then improvements to, you know, sidewalk and signalization.
well, I don't think the sewer commission has agreed to expand the sewer district along 3A
No, we have not.
to go to town meeting, as far as I know.
Well, if the sewer does approve it, it won't require us to go to town meeting because of the affordable housing at that location. We have the authority to establish that new sewer district without going to town meeting. Whether or not we in the end would choose to do that has yet to be determined. But we have spent a lot of effort putting together the details associated with how the owner of the property will be required to meet all of our specifications, inspections, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a, last time I looked, 5-page connection agreement that the owner must sign before we do anything. That's the status right now, and he hasn't done anything. He's waiting to find out whether or not he's going to end up having to pay for that sewer pipe, because we're not going to charge all the other users, should that come to pass, for connecting his private property.
Well, I'm going to have to leave the meeting, but I just wanted to get back to Bill McGowan's first statement about doing this deep dive into really what Cohasset wants. And, you know, I think it's a good opportunity to present a practical, common sense solution to the issues. But you have to define the issues. And I've heard the following issues, and it's probably not all of them. Brewster Ledgewood area, Stone Street area, Sawyer to Tupelo Road, and on the other side of Sawyer Street, that whole section of 3A, and South Main Street. So those are 4 areas that I've heard talk about. Now, then there's certain overriding principles I've also heard talk about. How much growth and build out does your plan address? That Mass Works grant that Brian Joyce was talking about. I've heard that, and I've heard the same discussion that he brought up, that part of it is sewer. Pick up Stasco and then run everything down to the pumping station. Another overriding item is redundancy. People are going to be interested in, well, what happens if the membranes fail? And another one is nitrogen you've talked about. So I just think you have an opportunity to put down a position for each of the geographic areas, and then for these overriding things, redundancy, growth and build out, Mass Works grant, and nitrogen. Because people are going to argue about all of those. Are they going to want to know that you've had a rational decision-making process to address all of those?
Gary, can you send, if you've got that written, can you send that to us?
Yeah, I've gotten it written. I'll email it to you, Bill.
Okay. And just as a point of record, what I mentioned last night was the development of a white paper that would address all these things. It was another speaker that used the word deep dive. So,
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to jump off, but thanks for letting me listen and give you my 2 cents. And I'll send you that email, Bill.
very good. Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Send me
Bye,
a
everyone.
copy too,
Bye.
please.
Oh,
Send it to Lisa and she'll send it to all of us.
Wayne, do you still have that same email address? WS at,
No, mine's changed, but if you send it to Lisa, Lisa can distribute it to us.
what's Lisa's email?
Gary, send it to me and I'll send it to Lisa.
Okay. Okay, good. Bye-bye.
See ya.
We'll see you, Gary.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. So Brian, what's the status of the grant request for the 3A work? Or
So I don't think there's any announcement until November. I think it might be the first week in November. So we're just we're in a waiting pattern right now, John.
okay. Any idea at all about what the probability of success might be?
It depends on who you talk to. So we have the state senator and other representatives have submitted letters of recommendation. So I think it's a better than 50-50 chance. It is a competitive grant, and I'd be guessing if I gave you a real answer.
And that has to, Brian, does that have to be voted on by legislature of the state?
So there's a selection board comprised of different agencies, and no, I don't think it's voted on at in the legislature.
Okay.
But there is, I guess, political pull by each representative of different areas, and the governor's office.
Thank you.
Would that cover any work that would have to be done in the pump station at Tupelo Road? Or is that something that the sewer department will have to cover or something?
So I don't think it got down into the weeds of exactly. It was kind of a loose improvements. I suppose it could if it was required to receive the extra flow, but it wasn't. It wasn't designed down to every specific thing that's going to entail in the improvements.
Right. And I would imagine in the design, it would not be designed just for the Stop and Shop, but it would be designed for anything that happened from Sawyer Street to going down the line in terms of sizing and all the rest of it, right?
Correct.
Okay. So that should be, things like that should be looked at now, because in terms of if it was to happen, these are things that should be part of the design and implementation part, not just because I see this as something that people think is going to be done, and it's going to be done because of affordable housing, but it can't, in my opinion, be done that's the only thing it's used for, because the cost would so outweigh the value that it doesn't make sense.
And Brian, speaking just for the sewer line, that sewer line is specifically authorized from Chief Justice Cushing Highway, basically from the Stop and Shop Plaza south to Tupelo Road. It's not going to go north and cover everything from the mobile station on the corner up to the Mary Lou's Plaza.
Correct. Yeah, it's really from Sawyer Street to Tupelo Road.
And there's no holes in the contract, whatever the contract will be, that a year from now that doesn't, we don't get an application from that gas station or other abutting properties.
I don't know if it's that specific in the grant proposal.
Okay.
So just to go back on that, Wayne, Bill. So I guess it would, it's like any other connection or an application from somebody who's outside of the sewer district. If the sewer district goes to Sawyer Street, then, that's where it ends. So it's in effect that, any applications up north of there would kind of be the same scenario what we're talking about now with an extension to get there.
Right. My fear, which I've probably said at least 200 or 300 times since we started the process of review with Stop and Shop Plaza, is the Avalon. They were denied a sewer application by the town, even though they were 40B. I still hear rumors that it might be sold, and I suspect that if there's sewer with proximate to their property line, they're going to want to connect to it. So I suspect that our plant's volume would not be able to hold it based on what we want to do with available gallonage. But, you know, they could create an issue for us, I think is what I want to place on the table.
Bill, I think with the design and construction of their plant, it would cost them more to abandon that and bring everything out to 3A than it would ever be worth.
Yeah, I don't know.
Their while. Yeah, it would be more likely having another Avalon.
Yeah, right next
on
to
the
it.
other side of the street.
Yeah.
But
And that plant's in the sweet spot that I talked about, that it's economical to run that way. So probably more economical than tying to sewer.
Yeah. All right. Okie doke. Let's see. So I think we've talked about everything. Grinder pumps. Do we have anything to mention on that?
I think Lisa went through all the files. Lisa, you want to just, I mean, and at this point, I'm looking at some of the information she has. We've added a couple of more pumps on there. Although it's still not totally conclusive, it does appear that Black Horse was given grinder pumps as part of their installation.
Mm-hmm.
So those are town-owned grinder pumps. So those are going to be put on the list in their entirety. And there's a couple other areas where, you know, we're checking as far as the fees that were paid. Some fees have been paid. The question is it the right fee? Because they may have two pumps. You know, if they have two pumps, they should be paying two fees, that type of thing.
Are we ready with respect to a mailing slash information packet? Are we ready to send that out to the folks?
Yeah, we did the information packet. I think probably a week and maybe or so. I have to actually spend a little time on the phone with Lisa to go through a couple of the items, but we should have the list of town-owned grinders pretty much wrapped up. So probably at that point in time, you can do a mailing list.
So, yeah, okay. So to that end, John and Wayne, should we put this on the agenda for the next meeting, include Rod in it to make sure, and then make sure that we are prepared with his sort of blessing of the whole thing, that we then the following week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, send out letters to all of the folks along with the information package and all that. Is that reasonable thing to do?
I hope.
yes,
Yeah, no, I mean, because we've been sort of doing this, and I'm sort of thinking, let's just take this off our plate and just do it, you know, and like, but I don't think we're going to be 100%, but we're probably going to be 97.5% correct as we do it. And there might be some stragglers or what have you, but just my guesstimate of this, because we're trying to go back over all the years as to what's happened and recreate it. So I think we do it, if that's just my opinion.
right.
What
The
is
sooner the
the-
better.
Yeah.
What is the date that the residents will stop paying the fee?
Well, I don't remember what the letter said, but it's got to be it would probably be what, the end of the year? Is that what, I can't remember what the letter had.
Because we have to notify the water department for when they do their billing.
Mhm.
And we have to give them ample time to incorporate that into their software.
Well, how much time, I mean, what would they need?
Yeah, it would end the fee on the at the end of the quarter. The billings go out the next billing cycle when the meter readings are being done right now.
I was going to say 1st of October they go out, right? Somewhere in there.
But
So
would you,
if we send it out in the middle of October, we presume that they will be paying until the 1st or the 31st of December. Is that a reasonable, that's basically the end of the quarter, right?
Yes.
That would be a great time to do it, but
Yes.
will it give us enough time to be able to get them to understand it and
Yes.
have we have to have the easement stuff ready.
right.
And I was under the impression that they were going to sign that as soon as they sign it and return it. Did we get on the list for when the charge would stop? If they didn't return it by a certain point in time, the charge would stay on. And in fact, and we'd have to do it on a quarterly basis from there on until everybody was done.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that gets a little sticky with the billing, because when they program the billing software, I think it's all or none. But I can confirm that with,
Brenda?
No, that wouldn't be the case,
Yeah,
because
no,
they're
and-
doing, today they're doing, half the town is not on it, some of the part of the town is, so.
right, but I guess it's more involved. It would be more involved if you're
So,
pointing
Be
certain
more-
ones versus
more
a
work.
blanket.
Lisa, does Brendan know that we're actually doing this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And I'd maybe give her a heads up that, you know, that we're thinking that we're going to try to get this thing set up by the end of the year. The other thing I want to just, you know, I'm sure everyone is aware of this, is that even though we send these things out, doesn't mean that anyone's going to rate them. And we should probably have some way to follow up, whether that be a direct call, email, something, because I think we know that, you know, when we send out information packets on the grinder pumps and, you know, don't dump your old screws and nails on into it, that kind of thing. People don't read it; they throw it out. So, I think we just have to be prudent, have a way to follow up on this thing, so that people will sign that letter, right? And then.
But in fact, do we need, and Dan, I think probably could answer this too, I'm not sure that the town needs the homeowner's assent to take away an easement that we granted when it is a positive thing.
That was what I was going to bring up. Is there's two ways of approaching it. One is basically just go and, you know, have the selectmen vote on it to release, and you release all the easements, and that's it. Or the preferred way, I guess, to make sure that everything transpired correctly and this the assent of the homeowner, is to send a release form or a consent form to the homeowners that is also signed. And if you do something like that, then I would say you want to maintain the fee until such time as you get that form back. So,
Yeah, and I think that was the method that was preferred by Rod, that we get this, which is why he advocated the development of a letter that goes out, so that we know,
Right.
you know, that they have to agree to it.
Right.
It's a stronger legal case, I guess.
yeah, the incentive is basically they will continue to get a fee until they release it.
Right. So Lisa, I would ask you to invite Rod to the next meeting, and that we put this certainly on it, so that we can talk specifically dates that we pull the trigger, you know, all the things that we need to do it.
And by the way, if you sent that release with the bill and said, if you sign this effective the next quarter, that charge is going to come off, you're going to have a higher return than if you're doing all this separately from the, you know, from the billing process.
The only problem is, again, there's some people who weren't being billed the monthly fee. So you still want to release.
Yes.
So you need your own database.
Well, if the selectmen release all the
Easements.
yes. It's a nicety if the homeowner agrees.
Well, yeah, but I think we do need, I think it would be wise of us to take Rod's advice, because I think he was pushing us on the easement letter itself, but
I agree. I'm just.
maybe we do both. Maybe we do both, you know?
Yeah, I'm just talking about those homes that haven't been paying the fee, but they've been enjoying the benefit.
Oh, yeah,
And there aren't many of them.
I know.
Right. For those, you would use the easement as the, you know, we're going to keep the easement if you don't pay the thing. So you want to get rid of the easement, you're going to sign it, and then you're going to, then you're going to have responsibility for the grinder pump and stuff. And I think that anybody that isn't paying it shouldn't have their grinder pump fixed or repaired or anything else if something happens to it.
Good point.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we get a bill for someone that isn't paying the $70 or whatever the amount was, then we shouldn't fix it,
Correct.
providing we have a vote of the board and stuff like that to say that's the policy.
There's also another group of people that potentially have not had an upgrade to an E1.
How many?
Might have to go back and look, but maybe a dozen, maybe more.
But we
Basically,
were supposed to be finished.
yeah. But there are people that have no documentation for installations. So
Are they paying the fee or not paying the
there
fee?
is to go out and look, to be honest with you.
So you're
Just to make sure.
talking $60,000, right?
Could be, right?
Yep. So the question is, do you go and you upgrade them, or give them a get out of jail card and say, if it breaks down, we'll replace the pump?
Are they paying the $70?
In some cases.
Okay, in those cases, if they're
There's
not, then
no clear
no break.
delineation. Yeah.
By the time we have our discussion in 2 weeks, are we going to have a definitive list of who is in which
As best as I can, yes.
corner?
With a list of a couple of sub lists as far as the categorizing.
Yeah, and if you can give us sort of a high-level template that says, these are all the guys that are ready to go. These are the guys that are sort of ready, and these are the guys that don't even know they're living in the town of Cohasset. So,
well, someone has to just handle that.
Yes, okay.
Lisa or Dan.
yeah.
Next.
So I would like to also invite Brenda from the Water Department, who does the billing, to the next meeting as well.
Sure.
Just,
I think Lisa, John and Wayne weigh in on this, but I think that we should give her a heads up that we want to do this regardless of whether she wants to do this or not. I mean, this ball is rolling hard, and we need her assistance either to give us a database of all the names that we can then do it ourselves, or she assists us with doing it, but we're going to do it.
oh no, yeah, she's fine. She's the one who actually asked me about it originally, because I had no idea, being new, but she's the one who brought it to my attention here.
Yeah. Okay.
She just wants to know whether she takes them off the list or not, and
Exactly.
Yep.
and in a timely fashion. And if we make a decision next week, that'll give her plenty of time to do what she needs to do to end the assignment of those fees as of December 31.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
I know that we have a gentleman on the line wanting to discuss an abatement. I think we should probably go to that since I've got a hard stop at 12 o'clock. I have another call, so wanted to give him sufficient time on that.
Okay, yes, so if we have Paul Berg. I'm going to allow you to talk. If you can unmute yourself, Paul. There we go.
It's like my wife gives me that instruction. You can unmute yourself. I'm here again, speaking in relative to 60 to 66 South Main, and you're familiar with the problems we had. It turned out to be a 2-inch water main that fed the boiler that runs underneath the building, which is a slab, and there's a crawl space under there. And this pipe we found, and we only found the actual pipe yesterday. We had silenced the boiler and turned it off, so we weren't losing any more water. But it took the plumbers and Sean Harris Heating. They couldn't find it, so I had to get Hoadley in from Rockland to come over, and they actually found this pipe yesterday. So I have Sean Harris working as quickly as he can, because there is no heat in the building, to find it, or cut it out basically and replace it so that we can in fact fire the boiler back up again, give everybody heat. But because it was a 2-inch water main, we lost a lot of water down into the slab, basically right under back hallway of French memories, if you will. And it went into the sand, and there's some rubble down there it's not pretty, of course. But so I was seeking abatement for the water that obviously didn't use the standard sewer to get out of the building, but the stuff that just went back into the ground. And there's no way to tell you exactly how much that was, without a doubt. But that's why I'm not seeking to get rid of all the sewer charges. It's obviously just a portion of it.
Paul, question, if I could, just a quick question. Have you gotten an abatement from water on any of this?
No,
Have you applied for one?
no. I mentioned it to Brenda. Brenda said, to be honest, that since it's after the meter, there would be no way to, basically you use the water somehow. The water is after your meter, and it shows that it went through your meter, but that there's a possibility, since it didn't all go back into the sewer system, that you can get a possibly. So that's why I started with here with you gentlemen, or just with the sewer commission, and I have not gone to town to seek an abatement from water. No. And the problem we have, of course, is the guys who own the building. It's got people not paying rent. You've got, well, all the problems of 2020. So it's been crazy.
If you found the pipe yesterday, was it still leaking up to yesterday? Because it
No.
seemed it
No,
wasn't. Okay.
We had,
But-
they had isolated that it was actually coming from something feeding the boiler, because when the boiler was on, the spinning of the water meter was,
Would go on.
so we isolated it, and when we shut the boiler down and we shut the water going to the boiler off totally, the meter stopped moving.
Okay.
So we know that.
Right,
Sorry.
but I mean, but it seemed as though when you came to visit us and stuff the first time and stuff, that you found the problem and it had been corrected at that point. But it sounds like it has continued up till yesterday.
No, we found up to that, when I first came, we had identified the fact that it was
The boiler.
a leaking pipe, and we went ahead and isolated it and shut it off, so we no longer were using water from that pipe.
Okay. Okay.
Isolate.
So in other words,
Them to find it and then find the actual pipe under the.
okay. All right. So the key thing is that you're really looking at the original abatement request rather than additional usage since that was submitted. And
That's
now
correct.
you're just giving us the proof that it was a leak because you had copies of the invoices and stuff like that, and also, part of the hardship aspect of it, because you did have to pay all these things too. So I don't have my notes from the last
Maybe
sort of not my office, but I did recommend that we would give some portion of an abatement in my mind, when we had it. So I think it's good to get an update, but I'm not sure that I can tell you what the amount is because it's not in front of me.
So I guess the question, well, not the question, but it is my understanding that we can only if we do grant an abatement, it only is good for the year of 2020. We can't go back.
No, and that's fine. I initially was indicating that, showing you the usage and how it did start getting sort of a little crazy, latter part of 19, certainly in the third quarter. And then it was really 2020 when it jumped. And then in the last bill we got, which went from, I want to say, we ended up using 32,000 cubic feet of water and got a $7,200 water sewer bill. And that's when, of course, people start to take notice and say, well, what are we doing here? So that's, and I understand it would have to be 220. I'm not.
So Lisa, do you have in front of you like the 2020 sewer charges, what that number would be?
So I have for the reading date of July 1st, the reading was for sewer was 34,000 and the sewer bill was 3276. That was the August 3rd bill.
So 3,000, so what was 3,276 or 32,000?
Nope, $3,276.40.
And that was for the period ending July, or June, the end of June, right? So
Yes.
we have to, so we were looking
And what was the,
at 1, 2, 3 quarters of 2020.
So what I was instructed to do when asking for sewer abatements is go back around, because the water is used pretty much the same at the same period. So I took the August of 2019, the August of 2018, and the August of 2017 and averaged them. And I come up with an abatement cost of $2,304.59 based on the average.
Okay, so what I was asking is the actual for, what were sewer charges to him for the year of 2000 to date? What have we charged them?
FY 21.
Yeah, 21, you're right. Well,
Right.
shouldn't we be John, shouldn't,
There's only been one
No.
bill go out.
Can we
No,
go
if we
off-
do
can we go back to January or not?
No,
Okay,
if we do FY 21, that just started in July.
right.
So we don't even have, I don't even have that bill.
Yeah, but I
The
think
latest
that-
bill was June of 2020, which is FY 20.
Right.
So I guess I don't understand what you're asking.
Last bill reading date was.
when do we
7/1.
have to go back to town meeting for an abatement in a previous fiscal year, I think? I think that's a rule, not calendar year, but fiscal year.
Yeah.
So I don't believe, and maybe Dan, you recall, I don't believe we can request an abatement or agree to an abatement in a prior fiscal year without town meeting approval.
Well, we're probably past it at this point in time, but I believe up until a certain time in September, you can make adjustments, but you're probably beyond that. So yeah, you'd have to go back and do an abatement at town meeting for a prior fiscal.
Prior fiscal year.
Right, and yeah, that would be something that we should, I'm trying to think of who to ask on that. I mean, Lisa, has Brian left us?
He
Looks like
has.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's typically the town treasurer.
Yeah.
but we can find this out. We can find this out before the next meeting.
Right.
Yes.
And Lisa, yeah, I have one clarification. Was the average sewer bill 2304, or was that the amount that was over the average bill?
Over the average.
That was the amount over the average.
Okay, all right. So that's the number that we would be looking for an abatement. That amount.
Yes, so that was the
That's FY 20, I presume.
Yes, that was period from May through July, or through June. May 1st to July 1st.
In FY 20, yeah. How about earlier that year?
You know, some of the numbers are a little high continuously, all the way back to 5/2/19.
Correct.
So there might be some leakage during that period of time, but there's also.
I'm only interested in FY 20. I'm not willing to go back.
I don't think we can go back that far. I think we could go back one, and that's for some reason, I don't know why I have that in my head, but.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the 2304, and then it's just a case of, can it be taken off now, or do we have to wait till town meeting? But that's the amount that we'd be looking for, because I think it's going to get too complicated to try to think about, well, I had a leak here, but I think I fixed it, but I'm not sure I fixed it, and that type of thing. And I think that would be fair to the person applying. So I would make a motion to approve a $2,304 abatement to the June 2000 bill, but leave with the provision that we have to have the treasurer determine whether that can be done now or whether it has to go to a town meeting.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Okay, and Lisa, you can try to get that answer, and then we can let the applicant know what the answer was. But at least he knows there'll help some money coming back.
I won't have to pay.
Next item.
I think we're done. I don't think we have anything else unless there's something other business we need to.
Okay. Can I give you a little update on something that I had discovered that was very surprising to me, and that does not affect Cohasset, and that is that the selectmen in Situate are meeting this morning with a subcommittee to discuss sewering North Situate through the pipes that were installed by the T and doing a program to reduce their I&I in order to accept that additional flow. So I thought that was a very interesting outcome to that.
You have better spies than Wayne. You have better spies than I do.
It just shakes me up what people don't know sometimes.
So this discussion was just North Situate or all the area bordering the Gulf?
I think initially it's going to be the areas of North Situate, but when they do this, they're going to have the capacity in the collection system to be able to do all the rest of it. And with this particular situation, they have the option probably in the future to find another spot between one end of town and the other end of town that they could conceivably create another satellite plant or something. But in the meantime, they have to just install a pump that was planned for, and they're going to be discussing what that's going to cost, and et cetera.
So Wayne, did they know that the pipe was there as of yesterday?
I don't think that they did. That it came out, when I mentioned it the first time, is, uh-oh, what are they talking about? And then yesterday I got the details on the fact that there's a manhole on one side of the street, there's one on the other side of the street, it's connected to this main, it goes down to this particular place, and this place has to have a pump put in because that's the way it was designed to go to a forced main. And it was like, from this, and it's interesting because the sewer operator is the one that provided most of the information and had the enthusiasm that maybe this is going to happen, even though it was done in 2004, so 16 years ago. So it was just, the only thing that surprised me was that when someone was looking for regionalization, that they didn't look at what the assets were that the town already had for the areas that were being considered for sewer.
That was easier.
And well, so, just nobody knew.
This sort of surfaces another thought in that we've always been sort of under the gun that the only alternative we have if we have an emergency is to go to Hull. If they were able to put a plant together with sufficient capacity, we could probably entertain an intermunicipal agreement with Situate to take stuff from us if we need them. So we could actually have, we would be in a position to send stuff either to Hull or to Situate, potentially.
Bill, I agree that that's a direction that we should have included in a one-on-one discussion with Situate once they get
their shite together.
Is their dealing with,
yeah,
and how they might resolve it. I would volunteer. You know how retired people are. You have you can volunteer because you don't have a day job. I'll volunteer to put together some working points for our next step to satisfy the commitment that we made last night to take a next step. So let me put together a list of things to be included that I will send to Lisa, and then she can circulate it, and we can
Okay.
Close that loop. Will that work for you guys?
Yeah, that'd be
Yes.
fine. And
Mhm.
and I will. In fact, I have a note on my sheet here that I will send a mail to Tracy asking her to put the mail in front of Chris to say we need the town to fund the study that we're about to undertake. You know,
Yeah.
and give them a reasonable number.
That would be helpful because I know some of the items of the list are going to require some more effort from either Dan and or Brian or both.
Right.
And I noticed Chris said at the meeting last night that Brian has got a lot of other stuff on his plate. So that's important for us to recognize and not put too big a burden on him either.
Well, and then I think we have to think about if we're going to do this, it's, you know, rather than doing it electronically, it probably would be worthwhile to, you know, go to a printer or something and have it, you know, professionally prepared.
Yes,
Rather than an electronic copy, but, you know, as well. But
absolutely.
so yeah, I will do that, and then we'll what I'll do is I'm going to draft a letter to the two gentlemen, probably the same letter to each one of them regarding the blower noise and the fan noise, and just say, hey, we're working on it. This is what's going on. This is why. You know, completely unplanned event, but due to, you know, I'll give them the points, and then we'll see what we can do.
Good. We're doing our best.
We are.
We
Thank you very
recognize
much.
the problem.
Does anybody have anything else they want to get on with?
Just curious, Wayne, do you know what the size of that pipe was?
No, but I'll get the information to you.
Okay.
There's like I said, there's a meeting today. Now, the good thing is that one of the select women from Situate have been on our broadcasts here and has been picking up information, and then it was how it was gotten from. I said I had to have it confirmed, and I need something factual and stuff. So when I got the manhole numbers and I got this and I knew where it was going and stuff, that gave me more assurance that in fact it did exist, and more surprised that other people didn't know about it.
Yeah. So when are you going to start running the Situate sewer system and the plant? When do you take that job on? You probably know more. You know more about running the Situate sewer system than they do.
No, I just know about real estate. That's all.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Well,
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Can I make a motion that we adjourn?
Yes. Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yep.
Thank
See you, Dan. See you, Lisa.
And